Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something called indirect range restriction,
Oh.
or IRR for short.
IRR.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those sneaky statistical things that can really, mess up
Oh,
research.
yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it can lead to some pretty misleading conclusions if you're not careful.
For sure. It's like you're only seeing part of the picture.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this paper that we're looking at today by Guinness and Whitehead, they really dive deep into this whole IRR thing.
A Guinness, like the beer.
Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly like that.
Okay, got it.
So this paper, they use these simulations to show how much IRR can just totally throw off the correlation coefficient.
Oh, right. The correlation coefficient, that's like how strongly two things are related, right?
Exactly. So, let's say you're trying to figure out if um, a new teaching method helps improve test scores,
Oh, okay.
but you're only studying a small group of students.
Right.
IRR could make it look like the method is, amazing,
Well.
when really the effect might be, much smaller or even not there at all.
Oh, so it's like a false positive kind of thing.
Yeah, basically. You can make things look way more impressive or way less impressive than they actually are.
Tricky.
It's like this hidden gremlin in the data.
I like that analogy, the gremlin in the data.
And the thing is, it pops up all the time in hiring, education, healthcare.
Really all over the place.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, imagine a company uses a personality test to pick who they hire.
Okay.
Then later they want to see if that personality trait actually predicts if someone's good at the job.
Makes sense.
But they've already limited the range of personalities they're looking at, right?
Because they only hired people with certain traits in the first place.
Exactly. So the correlation they find might not be true for everyone, just for the people who pass that initial test.
Gotcha. So how did these Guinness and Whitehead, how did they study all this?
Well, they couldn't exactly go out and observe all these situations happening in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be pretty hard to control for all the factors.
So they use this thing called Monte Carlo simulation.
Monte Carlo. Sounds fancy.
It's basically like creating a little virtual world inside a computer.
Oh, interesting.
And they could change different factors and see how those changes affected the results.
So they were like playing God with the data, in a way.
Kind of, yeah. But for science.
Uh-huh. Right. For science.
And that let them isolate the effects of IRR and really see how much it was distorting things.
That's clever.
And they found that IRR doesn't just affect individual studies, it can mess with meta-analyses too.
Meta-analyses. Remind me what those are again.
So meta-analysis is when researchers combine the results of a bunch of different studies to get a bigger picture.
Oh, right. To try to get a more definitive answer.
Exactly. But if those individual studies already have IRR messing things up, then the meta-analysis is also going to be messed up.
So it just compounds the problem.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's a big deal because researchers rely on meta-analyses a lot to make sure their findings are solid.
So this IRR thing, it's really making things difficult for researchers, huh?
Yeah, it definitely throws a wrench in the works.
Makes you wonder how many findings out there are affected by this and we don't even know it.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to understand IRR and how it can impact research. We'll talk more about the implications of this in the next part of our deep dive. So we know IRR can really make research hard to understand,
Yeah.
but how does that actually affect us out here in the real world?
You see all those headlines?
Yeah.
Like, new diet is the key to a longer life.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Right. Those could be based on studies with, IRR.
Right.
So it might not actually apply to everyone.
Oh, man, so all those weight loss claims,
Yeah.
they could be totally misleading.
It's possible. You have to be careful. Like, look for things like how big was the study? Who are the people in it? Do they account for, other factors?
Okay, so basically don't believe everything you read.
Haha. Well, be critical, At Guinness and Whitehead, they found that IRR could inflate the,
What was it? The variance?
by like 8.5%.
8.5.
That's a lot.
That is huge.
Especially when, we use research to make decisions.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like about health, money, kids, all sorts of stuff.
Right. So it's important.
So what can we even do about it?
Well, there are some statistical things researchers can do
Okay.
to kind of adjust for IRR.
Like to fix it.
Try to.
No.
But it's not always perfect.
I guess that makes sense.
You need to know how the data got messed up in the first place.
To unmess it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So researchers got to be really clear about their methods
Yeah.
and, any problems with their study.
Like IRR.
Like IRR, yeah.
So for us normal folks, I guess we just got to be skeptical.
Be skeptical, ask questions, and don't just, accept every headline you see.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Look for studies that other people have done too.
Oh, like replicated.
Exactly, replicate it. And who is doing the study matters too.
Interesting.
Because even the best research, can have problems.
Okay, so you mentioned before that IRR messes with something called validity generalization.
Oh.
Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. So validity generalization is when researchers want to combine a bunch of studies together.
Right, like to get the big picture.
Right. But you see, if each study has IRR,
Oh,
it's like mixing a bunch of blurry photos.
you get a super blurry photo.
Kind of. You don't get a clear picture of what's really going on.
So it's not just being critical of one study.
Yep.
It's about looking at, like, the whole body of research.
Exactly. And knowing that science, it's always changing.
Right, always learning new stuff.
And what we think is true now might change later with new evidence.
So we got to be critical of the research, look at the limitations.
And try to see the bigger picture, yeah.
Anything else we should keep in mind?
Guinness and Whitehead, they found something interesting.
Oh, what's that?
The effects of IRR.
Yeah.
They're worse when the real correlation between things is low anyway.
What did that even mean for us out here in the real world? So, like, if we're trying to predict if someone with, a certain personality will be good at a job,
Yeah.
and that's already hard to predict,
Right, like there's so many factors.
then IRR makes it even harder.
It does, yeah. It's like trying to predict the weather,
Oh, yeah, weeks in advance.
Right. Even the best models, there's always a chance you'll be wrong.
And then IRR is like adding even more chaos to the mix.
Exactly.
So, to bring it all back to this deep dive we've been doing on the Guinness and Whitehead,
Yeah.
what's the main thing our listeners should take away from all of this?
I think the biggest thing is, research, it's not always clear-cut.
Yeah,
There are always things to consider.
like limitations and stuff.
Exactly, and IRR is definitely one of those things that can really have a big impact.
So don't just, believe everything you read.
Haha, well, yeah. Be critical, think about the study.
How many people were in it? Was there bias?
All of that. It's like being a detective almost.
Ooh, I like that.
Looking for clues to figure out what's really going on.
And even the best research is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right, you got to look at the whole picture, all the evidence.
And be open to changing your mind if new stuff comes up.
Exactly. Science is all about constantly learning and updating our understanding.
And sometimes those updates come from, unexpected places.
Like from the sneaky little thing called IRR.
Exactly. Who knew, right?
And hey, maybe our listener will start seeing IRR out in the wild now.
Ooh, that's a fun challenge.
Yeah, like in the news or even just conversations with people.
Once you start looking for it, you'll probably see it everywhere.
It's true.
Well, on that note, that's our deep dive on IRR. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And remember, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep on diving deeper.